See, I've always been heavily on fixed income. If I look at my passive income, I'm comfortably making 50-60 lakhs a year, which is more than well taking care of all the expenses that I have and I'm left over. Broadly, my career spanned across three companies, Wipro, Sun Micro, and Apple. And by the time I left Apple, I was close to a crore. The last 6-7 years of your career, you can probably make the whole money that you have made the first 20 years of your career. Somewhere in India, the work culture has become toxic. And I'm like, if I'm not enjoying it, should I just go through it?
Now that you have been on that journey, is there any difference from what you envisioned to what you're following today?
This is exactly what I wanted.
So, sir, what was the corpus number which you sort of derived?
That's $1 million question. This decision to leave the corporate world was something that was brewing in my mind from the age of 35. Fundamentally, because I was not enjoying it. Somewhere in India, the work culture has become toxic. And it was taking its toll on my health. It was affecting the family. And I'm like, if I'm not enjoying it, should I just go through it? Because the money is so good, it's very difficult to pull out.
Right.
And the last 6-7 years of your career, you can probably make the whole money that you have made the first 20 years of your career because you're at such a high level.
Right.
So I took a conscious call saying that I need 10 years where I have time, where I have money, and where I have strong knees to travel and explore and do all that I wanted to do. So then you go back and see what are my big expenses. Roughly, there are three buckets. There is one bucket which I will say called run the house.
Your day-to-day household
maid servant,
expenses,
driver, grocery, vegetables. There is a second bucket which takes care of the education for the children. Suppose after 7-8 years you want to change your car. Slightly more bigger related expenses. And there's a third bucket which is the reserve fund. You don't want to touch that.
Yeah.
Let that continue to grow. And if bucket 1 and bucket 2 needs to be topped up, bucket 1 primarily, because in 5, 6, 7 years time, the need for bucket 2 will kind of go away. Bucket 1, very safe, very secure. You don't want to mess with it. You want that regular income to come. Bucket 2, also reasonably safe and secure because you need that money not on a monthly basis, but over the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years. Bucket 3, you can take risks because you want returns from there. So between the bonds and the tax-free bonds and the RBI bonds, I recover the entire money to run the house. So that's what I said. That's the safe, secure part.
Right.
The icing on the cheese is the trading money that comes. Trading keeps me busy. If I look at my passive income, I'm comfortably making 50-60 lakhs a year. Which is more than well taking care of all the expenses that I have and I'm left over.
Right. Just before we get to discovering more of that unique journey, in terms of your career trajectory, if maybe you could give us a timeline of the companies which you worked until you sort of took retirement.
Yeah.
And maybe like the salary jumps between those as well.
Yeah. Broadly, my career spanned across three companies, Wipro, Sun Micro, and Apple. The first decade was with Wipro. Very simple job, a sales job, earning 3,000 rupees. And every year you used to get a 10-12% hike, and every 2 years you used to get a promotion.
Right.
So effectively, the salary started galloping pretty fast. After about 5-6 years in Wipro, they sent me for a stint to the US around 97, 98. I think I was already at 8 lakhs annum. So
Right.
from 50,000 an annum to 8 lakhs an annum happened in less than 6 years. US was a good stint because both me and my wife were working and it was a sales job. So the incentives were very handsome.
Right.
A 3-4 year stint in the US, I was able to come back with significant amount of money to buy a house and buy a piece of land. So that gave me a huge advantage. Then after I came back, I joined a multinational called Sun Microsystems, and I was with them for about 4.5 years. And then again, the salary shot up, this time at a much senior position as a general manager. And then you started making some monies in RSUs and ESOPs.
Right.
And finally, a good long stint at Apple. And by the time I left Apple, I was close to a crore.
You mentioned you saved a bunch of money when you did your first stint in the US. The properties which you bought, where did you buy them in India?
Bangalore. So I'm still staying in the flat which I bought in Koramangala. I bought the land in Marthahalli on which I built a house. I still remember the flat was 35 lakhs and the piece of land was 15 lakhs. So 50 lakhs. Today, that flat is more than 3 crores. And that 15 lakh land, I built a house for 65 lakhs. And in 3-4 years, I was able to sell it for over 2 crores. But with the profit that came from the sale of that property, between 2005 and 2012, I bought and sold 5 or 6 properties. So, I could buy a property at 1800. Within a year, the property price went to 2600 a square feet. So I was able to make, so I kind of did that 3, 4, 5 times. And then I said I got tired of it.
So any advice for people who are either into real estate investing today or are looking to get into it? What would be some advice which you would give them?
If you look at the last 6 years, between 2019-20 and now, the real estate value has almost doubled.
Right.
And I'm talking of the top 10, 15 cities. In Bangalore, for many, many years, a tier 1 builder, 1800, 2000 square feet flat, was 1.75, 1.8 crores.
Right.
Okay. Plus you spend 20, 30 lakhs on interior, so about 2 crores. Today that has become 3.5, 4 crores. We've seen a sudden jump in the last 5 years. Maybe the next 5 years, things are not going to go up. Everybody needs one house which you own and which you stay. Define for yourself a house where you can live for the next 15, 20 years. Buy a good property, but don't buy multiple properties. I was telling you between that 2003 and 10, I did multiple transactions because at that time, a lot of benefit was to the buyer. Pricing was aggressive. We made money out of it. But today when you go in, the builder has taken away most of the profits. So that is the reason between 2010 and 2020, you did not see too much of people getting into the market because the builders realized that they can make more money out of it. And that's why things tended to slow down.
So, sir, what was the corpus number which you sort of derived? Was this derivation of the number at 35 itself?
No, around 45. And that's $1 million question because it's a function of your lifestyle and it's a function of a zone of comfort plus. So you don't want to know that I made a mistake in this calculation. The rough monthly expense was about 2. Okay, all put together. So 2 into 12, 24, round it up to a 25, 25 into 30, 7.5, I said is the number one should look at. Now, so I was well above 10, not grazing that number. I'm 40-50% well above that number. That gave the comfort feeling.
Fantastic. And if I have to, ask you in terms of your portfolio, let's say pre-35 and post-35 when you started properly planning, what would your investment portfolio have looked like prior to that and post that?
See, I've always been heavily on fixed income. Although one tends to talk more about equities and stock markets and mutual funds. Maybe at that time, I was 80% fixed income, PPF, LIC, fixed deposits, bonds, 20% equity. Now I'm maybe more of a 60-40.
So now a 60 is equity or 60 is fixed income? 60 is fixed income.
60.
Interesting.
60.
So if maybe you could tell us, what the instruments you're investing in on the equity side and the 60% fixed income as well.
So I have a bunch of mutual funds and I also have direct equity. On the fixed income, between 2012 to 15, 16, there were a lot of tax-free bonds that had come. NHAI, Power Finance Corporation.
Yes.
All of them were giving you 8% tax-free. So I had invested a sizable chunk, almost 1.5 to 2 crores. With the tax-free bond, bandi kar diya unhone. Then when I decided to leave my job, I liquidated my real estate. I had a piece of land somewhere, I had a villa somewhere. I said I liquidated all of that. And maybe that was a mistake. I put all of that in RBI bonds.
Okay.
Which was giving you 7.5, 7.77, 7.8. But it was taxable. This was part of my run the house bucket. The tax-free bonds and the RBI bonds will mature between 2025 and 2030. And I'm very clear that that corpus is not going to go fully into the equity segment. So the run the family part has to be steady. I cannot take risks on the run the family because I still have another 20, 25, 30 years ahead of me. So I have to look at some bonds or some fixed returns which will continue to give me 8 to 10% on a steady state basis. And these are not things I want to toy with on a monthly, quarterly, yearly basis. I just want to buy something and it would be nice if the interest came once in 6 months or once in 3 months. I believe there are a lot of corporate and government bonds. It's a growing segment in the country. But maybe I have to educate myself to see where can I get safe and secure 8 to 10% returns
Right.
over the next 15 to 20 years.
So, sir, would you say luck has a factor in your financial journey?
It has. The last 1992 to 2025, India has been a great place to be. 2025 to 2050, India is probably a greater place to be. I think we saw it go from 1 trillion to 4 trillion. Even if you mess it up, you will go from 4 trillion to 10 trillion. You may not go to a 20 trillion, but a 10 trillion economy is also a large economy, and you're seeing so many startups. There will be potential Infosys and TCS created from some of these startups, if not many of them. Now you have to spot the wave. Out of the 1,000 stocks that are there, 50 stocks will just go non-stop for the next 20 years.
Right. So, sir, if I have to ask you today, what are your main priorities in life?
First priority is I want the children well settled and to be independent and stand on their own feet.
Right.
The second priority is 60-70% of life is over. In the remaining part, how can I accelerate my spiritual journey? When I checked with our school friends in our WhatsApp group and college friends, how many people had read the Bhagavad Gita? Nobody. It's a shame. And it's not religious fanatism. There is so much of practical knowledge over there,
Right.
which one needs to imbibe. And the third is, in whatever small way, how can I help others? Act of kindness, act of charity. So these are the three main objectives that I have today.
Right. And so, when you sort of thought about retirement, what did you envision retirement as then? And now that you have sort of been on that journey, is there any difference from what you envisioned to what you're following today?
No, this is exactly what I wanted. I wake up at around 5:30 and I go to bed at 10:30 and I'm busy the whole day. The first year, once you leave your job, is stressful because you are writing down every single rupee that you're spending to see, am I crossing the threshold? But after some time, you realize that actually speaking, with age, your expenses come down. You don't eat out as frequently as you did. You don't have to travel in the peak season during Christmas. You will find a Wednesday, Thursday when rates are cheap. So your quality of life is more healthy and your expenses are not really going up. But the watch does not control me. I have the freedom of doing things the way I want to do.
Thank you for watching and supporting our channel. If you like the stories we tell, here's your chance to be a part of it. If you or anybody you know has an interesting financial journey to share, then please fill the form in the pinned comment below and we'll get in touch with you.